The Suicide Squad has released in theaters, so today I'm going to stop and rank all 17 members of the Suicide Squad from the worst to the best. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Share your ranking of all 17 members of the Suicide Squad. My list isn't the right list, it's just my list, and I would love to see yours. As we go into this, I'm just ranking the members from the movie that just came out, not the people that were also in the 2016 film, and I'm ranking them just based off this new movie. With that said, let's get started. In last place, Blackguard, played by Pete Davidson. This is a character we're not shown a whole lot of. We see him on a plane, we see him with something stuck to his shoe, and we know he's a wimp that's scared of the person seated next to him, and he's a traitor that sold them out and got himself killed. But we don't see any skill sets, we don't see any powers, he's not given a distinctive personality, so we just have a traitor that's very wimpy, so he's in last. Number 16, Mongal, another member of the ill-fated Suicide Squad that almost entirely got wiped out. In her case, she's not really given any personality. We're just told that, like, maybe she's an alien, she grabs a helicopter, but there's just not much here to be interested in or any personality, but at least she wasn't a traitor, so she's not in last place. Number 15, Savant. It's a Suicide Squad movie. Someone has to have their head blown off by Amanda Waller, and here it turns out to be Savant. So he's the character we kind of follow for the first 10 minutes of the movie as we see him in his cell, playing with a ball and killing a bird, getting his bomb put in the back of his head, and then when the battle starts, he decides not to join in on the fun, decides to swim away and gets his head blown off. So that's mildly interesting to see one of these guys be a total wimp and rather die by Amanda Waller's hand than die at least trying to do something, so he's not at the bottom. Next up, T.D.K, played by Nathan Fillion, one of James Gunn's friends, and of course, another character who dies very early on in this film. Don't get any sort of character arc, don't learn much about him at all, but at least we get a couple of fun moments of him bantering on the plane. And then once we get to the island, he at least tries to use his powers, sends his arm forward. Can't do much, but at least he can annoy the people. It's an interesting, funny little bit to see that. And then as his arms are being shot and he's far away, it's just an interesting concept for someone to feel pain with limbs that are way over there and then dies a horrible death. Number 13, Captain Boomerang. They brought him back from the 2016 film just to kill him off right at the beginning. At least he gets some couple moments here and there showing that he's got some rapport with Rick Flag and Harley. He gets on the beach and he tries to at least do something, joins in, gets a couple of kills. He's not a total waste of a character, but he gets wasted by a helicopter crashing into him, unfortunately. Then we have Weasel, the character that dies first and then comes back at the end. There's not much here, just a creepy looking Weasel that creates some fun banter on the plane before they get there, and then sets the stage for the movie that you're watching when he jumps out of the plane into water, doesn't know how to swim, and promptly almost dies, or at least everyone in the movie and the audience thinks he dies. And so, a fun, memorable bit that just sets the stage and expectations for the film that you're in for. Number 11, Javelin, the final of our characters that die right there at the beginning. And I put him up here at the top simply because, as it turns out, he's a lot more important to the story than you'd immediately think. Because of that little bond that he has with Harley, there's small little conversations that she likes his accent, and he happens to die right around her, and he says those words that happen to matter to Harley. His javelin becomes this major player in the story that has a very important and disgusting part to play in the third act of this film. So he might die early. There might not be a lot of him, but his javelin makes Javelin just a little bit more interesting. Bringing us into the top 10 is Solsoria. Now, this is another character that doesn't have a lot of screen time. She's not given a big character arc or a big flashy personality, but the character is used to flesh out the world that this story is taking place in. She kind of grounds the story just a little bit because you have dictators, you have armies, gigantic starfish, of course the Suicide Squad. But at its core, it's about this nation that's trying to find stability, and she's the voice of the people. She's the face of who the Suicide Squad are trying to save on this island. And so that's kind of how she is important for the world building of this story. So it's a cohesive, holistic world. Not the Flash's most interesting character, but an important piece to ground this over-the-top story. Next up, the Thinker. Now, while he does, in fact, join the Suicide Squad on their mission trying to stop Project Starfish, he's also the person responsible for it. He's the mad scientist that thinks the ends justify the means, sees a world filled with evil forces battling to be in control of things, and he wants to be the smartest, doing the craziest things, discussing evil things, and not seeming to have any problem with it. There's something fun about having one of these mad scientist characters in the mix, but he doesn't really have an arc, doesn't play too much into the interesting stuff, so he's not like a top tier character, but I think he fits his role in the film well. Number 8, Amanda Waller, the person responsible for Task Force X and putting together this Suicide Squad, but as is usually the case, she's also one of the primary villains of the story. While she is trying to work for the good of the United States, she's also a horrible person that does awful, awful things constantly, thinking the ends justify the means, especially as you move into the third act of this film and you start to realize that she was largely responsible for Project Starfish, making a bunch of this stuff happen, and she's just covering her tracks, creates this scenario that causes tension inside of our team, starts tearing them apart because some of them are on full-blown Amanda's side and some of them are actually kind of heroic and want to do the right thing, especially as you move into the final battle of this one. She's like, no, it's not your job to save those people. Get on out of there. And she fully plans to kill the members of the Suicide Squad for trying to stop a kaiju from destroying a city and killing thousands and thousands of innocent people. She is a horrible person, but a fun horrible person that's a nice addition into the DCEU. Number 7, Peacemaker, a walking contradiction, a vicious sociopathic killer who cherishes peace more than anything.
I cherish peace with all my heart. I don't care how many men, women, and children I need to kill to get it.
John Cena plays the character with so much gusto. It's just a ton of fun to see someone so oblivious to their own hypocrisy and set up so often to say these hilarious lines, these ridiculous statements, and engage in brutal, brutal violence for the cause of peace. He's also a character that has a very defined value set that means in the third act of the film, he turns against the team for the purpose of trying to defend Amanda Waller for liberty, adding just the right conflict in there and showing the differences between the team members. The reason he's not in that top 5 for me is that he's played a little bit too much as a full-blown cartoon. I was hoping that at some point in time, they'd ground him a little bit more, give him a bit more humanity, something that explains why he is the way that he is a little bit more, especially as we kind of got to the point in time where him and Rick Flag get into the fight and he kills Rick Flag and Rick Flag has that, final line that I thought maybe it would challenge his worldview just a little bit more, put something in there, and it doesn't quite happen. And so he's just a live action cartoon. And I think there was a bit of an opportunity missed there. Then we have Polka-Dot Man, a character that I couldn't believe they were putting in this movie when I saw him in the trailer. And then they found a way to give him a bit of a backstory and a history that made him a lot more relatable and interesting than I was expecting. He was this child that was experimented by his own mother in order to turn him into a superhero. And in doing so, kind of turned him into this outcast villain that's in prison, and somehow by being put on the Suicide Squad ends up fulfilling that destiny, becomes a hero, and has a heroic death.
I'm a superhero!
While at the same time being entirely spiteful towards his own mother in the process. And so a character that I thought was pretty ridiculous and silly on concept, and James Gunn found a way to actually give him an arc and emotional resonance. In fifth place, Rick Flag, another one of our returning characters, and this time given a bit of a more lively personality. In the first film, he was love-struck, he was Mr. Serious, and here he's James Gunnified, given more humorous moments, and likewise, because he's now been with the Suicide Squad for a while, he's been on several missions with some of these characters, he actually kind of has a bond and a friendship with several of them that gives the movie a very interesting dynamic as you start to realize that it just gives a depth there to the relationships and a history just through little lines of dialogue about how different people respond to his death in the film, the way they interact all throughout the film just gives a history to it in an interesting way. He's also a character that shows that just because someone is working for Amanda Waller doesn't mean they share her lack of a moral compass. And as he learns things, he changes and adjusts and he's willing to put his own life on the line in order to do the right thing, especially when children are in danger. And so it's one of those characters that, especially we got the post-credit scene, we knew someone's coming back from a heart wound. I was hoping he was going to come back because I was really starting to like him. And then the guy that was a jerk is the one that we ended up getting back. But I thought this character had a nice upgrade for this film. Then we have Ratcatcher 2, another one of these characters that I had no idea who it was prior to seeing this film. She has a very strange skill set, but James Gunn's gifting is putting together a band of weirdos, outcasts, and finding the humanity there and making each one of them distinct. And so she gets this whole story about her father and kind of his moral code. Why did he choose rats? And because of that, it makes her sort of the glue for the team in a certain sense because she pulls people together. When King Shark wants to eat her and everyone else wants to kill him, she's like, no, let's be friends. And as they're going through the story, she forms this bond with Bloodsport where each of them are like, I'm not going to let you die.
I'm gonna get you out of here alive.
I'm going to get you out of here alive.
And so because of the way that her father treated her, she's used as this character to bring people together, cause people to see each other differently, even causes Bloodsport to see a rat differently. And that was not what I was expecting from this movie or this character, that she'd be used in kind of a very profound way. Real quick, before I give you my top three, remember to share your ranking down below in the comment section. My list is not the right list. It's just my list, and I would love to see yours. Also, this weekend, I'm starting a 3-part series where I'm ranking all 45 theatrically released DC films. It's a project I've been working on for about 18 months now. It was supposed to come out over a year ago when Wonder Woman 1984 was originally going to come out. It kept getting delayed, and it wasn't going to work out. Finally, I've been wanting to do this for over 2 years now. I'm ranking all 45 DC films. Be sure to check that one out. In third place, Harley Quinn. Safe to say the most popular character in this movie. She's appeared in 2 previous DCEU films. Margot Robbie is obviously great at playing the part. She's a ton of fun inside of the film. I would say that she's given the standout action sequence in the movie where she does her escape and she's taking all the guys out while there's all this cartoon stuff going on behind her. Just an absolute blast with some cool stunt work inside of it while having Harley Quinn's personality. She's even given a bit of a very quick mini romance in the story that has ill-fated as she just can't support what this guy's trying to do, and she's trying to make better choices with her love interest. But I thought the nice touch here was the way that they have her actually form friendships and bonds with multiple characters. And she has a history with them. As you get to the end of the film, and Bloodsport decides to do what he's going to do with that hard drive, like her response to it is like concern over her friend that just died. And there's something very touching about that in a way that, once again, I wasn't expecting. And that's what James Gunn does so well, is tells these ridiculous over-the-top stories that at the same time have something very human about them, and takes a character as insane and wild as Harley Quinn and doesn't in any way undermine her insanity, but does add in some humanity. Our runner-up, the guy on my shirt, King Shark, voiced by my favorite actor of all time, Sylvester Stallone. Now, naturally, this character is included in the film as comedic relief.
And?
Yes, that is your hand. Very good.
Now, this is a character used largely for the purpose of comedic relief, but they still found a bunch of different ways to still give him this simplistic character arc. He doesn't have a very complicated worldview. His relationship with other people is very simple. They're food or they're a friend, but somehow in doing that, they make him an emotionally resonant character by realizing, oh, you guys are my first friends. I won't eat you. As simple as that is, it fits the character and it fits into this ragtag group of James Gunn weirdos in this tale that we're telling. Now, I'm certainly biased towards the character because he is played by Sylvester Stallone, my favorite actor, and my wife loves shark movies and he is a shark and she's also a big Stallone fan, so naturally we're biased towards him. Maybe that squeaks him up a couple spots on the list, but once again, I wasn't expecting him to have the arc that he had, the friendships that he had, and use him in that way that actually does kind of have some emotion to it. But in first place is Bloodsport, the reluctant leader of our group, and of the true members of the Suicide Squad, the most grounded of the bunch. He doesn't want to join the team, but he's got a daughter that, as much as he's aggressive towards her, doesn't know how to respond to her, thinks he's a terrible father, didn't want her, wants what's best for her. And so he's forced into doing this mission. And then as you get to the third act of the film and the kaiju's released, he's the one that decides, I can't let this monster kill a bunch of innocent people. As much as he's not sure if there's any good inside of him, there is something in this mission, this group of people around him brings that out of him. He does care about other people, and through this journey, even wins the respect of his daughter.
That's my dad.
And that's the sort of thing that resonates with me the most. You have this guy that at the beginning doesn't think there's any good left in him, and by the end of it, he's decided to put himself on the line, go against his orders to try and save others, and is celebrated as a hero, wins the respect of his daughter. That's just profound for me, powerful stuff. So for me, he comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video, I've got a whole bunch more DCEU content. You can check it out in that playlist right over there. Also, you can check out my ranking of all the DC movies right down there. At least if I remember to add the card, it will be right there. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.